All right. Today we're going to dive into a really fascinating psychological analysis by the psychiatrist Augusto Curry. Now, just to be clear, we're setting theology completely aside for this. We're looking through Curry's lens at the mind of a man whose intelligence and, emotional control just completely baffled the foundations of modern science.
So let's start with the big question that really frames this whole thing. Who was this man? Who was this person whose psychology was so profound, so different, that it stood as a direct challenge to how we even understand the human mind?
First up, let's talk about medicine. Think about it. The entire field is built around fighting death, delaying it, right? But as Curry points out, Jesus spoke calmly about overcoming it entirely. That's a concept that just doesn't compute for medical science.
And then you've got psychiatry. Now, the field does amazing work managing symptoms and helping people cope. But Curry notes that Jesus offered a direct path to a kind of deep, inner peace and tranquility that honestly, psychiatry is still trying to figure out.
And finally, he turned sociology on its head. At the absolute peak of his fame, what does he do? He completely inverts the social pyramid. He, the leader, gets down and washes his disciples' feet. He was teaching this radical idea that the greatest person is actually the one who serves.
So, how did he have this kind of incredible insight? Well, according to Curry, it all starts with understanding that there are two very different kinds of wisdom.
Curry makes this really important distinction. See, there's what he calls inferior wisdom, which is all about accumulation, just gathering facts, piling up information. But then there's superior wisdom, and that's the kind he says Jesus had. It's based on being deeply aware of what you don't know. It's about recognizing just how vast your own ignorance really is.
And this quote from Curry just nails it. The death of a scientist occurs when he stops doubting his knowledge. Curry argues that Jesus totally mastered what he calls the art of doubt. But he wasn't using it to destroy faith or to be cynical. He was using it to break down prejudice and to crack open people's minds to completely new ways of thinking.
This mastery of his own mind leads us to Curry's next really powerful metaphor. This idea that our memory, our own mind, can either be a beautiful, cultivated garden or a dry, desolate desert.
And to really get this, Curry asks a fascinating question. We all know he had humble beginnings, sure, but why, specifically, a carpenter? Was there something more to it? A deeper reason for this seemingly simple job?
Okay, the answer that Curry proposes here is wow. It's absolutely startling. He suggests Jesus was a carpenter because he would eventually die with the exact same tools he worked with every single day: a hammer, nails, and wood. Just think about that for a second. His entire working life was a psychological exercise in confronting his own destiny calmly and without fear.
And this ties right into Curry's idea of the mind as a landscape. He says our memory is like a huge city, and all those negative things, our traumas, our fears, our rejections, if we don't manage them, they become like slums in that city. They turn our mental landscape into a desert. The goal then is to actively cultivate it into a garden of peace.
So here's the crucial link. Curry's theory is that Jesus learned to manage his own thoughts so perfectly that the very tools of his own death couldn't create a wasteland of trauma in his mind. He had mastered his internal world long before he had to face his external fate.
And what's cool is that Curry doesn't just leave it as a theory. He actually gives us a technique from this, and he calls it the DCD technique. It's pretty straightforward. Step 1, doubt. Doubt your negative thoughts. Doubt that voice that says you can't change. Step 2, criticize. Criticize your own passivity, those assumptions that hold you back. And finally, step 3, determine. Make a firm decision to be free, to be joyful, and to be the author of your own story.
Okay, so with this incredible control over his inner world, how did he handle all the external pressure? This brings us to what Curry analyzes as a super common mental trap, the paranoia of fame. Curry tells this really great little story to explain it. There's a rich man who builds the most stunning garden in the world, but he's so wrapped up in his anxieties he can't even enjoy it. But then he looks over at his gardener, a guy with next to nothing, who's always happy. And it hits him. The gardener's emotional account was overflowing, while his own was completely empty. The lesson is simple, right? True wealth isn't what's in your bank. It's what's in your mind.
And this is exactly what set Jesus apart. Curry says he just completely rejected that whole paranoia of fame. Even when huge crowds were following him everywhere, he never lost his simplicity. He could still stop and find something truly spectacular in a simple flower, a lily of the field. He never let his fame build a wall between himself and the world.
This ability to stay so present, so simple, even with all that noise around him, it all points to the final, really powerful takeaway from Curry's analysis: the importance of seeing the spectacle in life itself.
This one quote just sums up his whole approach perfectly. He made himself small to make the small great. It was never about raising himself up. It was about raising everybody else up, about seeing the incredible value and potential in every single person, no matter who they were. And because he truly saw the greatness in life itself, he could honor the people everyone else had forgotten. Curry points out that he treated the outcasts of his day, lepers, prostitutes, like they were royalty. The ultimate lesson here is that the key to real wisdom, to a rich emotional life, is to see life and every single person in it as a spectacular, profound event.
And so this whole analysis leaves us with a really direct and provocative question for our own lives. When you look at your own internal landscape, your own reactions, your own story, are you the author, or are you just a victim of your problems?